Hey, what's happening, guys? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and today we need to talk about the future of physical games. So we all, of course, know that two big game streaming services, Project xCloud from Microsoft and, of course, the Google Stadia, are on the horizon and are going to become realities very, very soon. Now, of course, these are two of a few services that are really focused on bringing streamed gameplay and all digital game purchasing and all digital game libraries to the consumer, to the gaming industry. And there are definitely some people who are pretty excited about all of this, but there are, of course, also a lot of people who are nervous about it. In fact, I would probably argue that more people are nervous about it than excited about it. You've obviously heard me talk about this, as well as plenty of other YouTubers. I'm not a big fan of this. These services, the idea of Google Stadia, streaming gameplay, I don't care how many devices I have available, but just streaming gameplay to my device, as opposed to actually just buying and owning it and having it physical and all of this stuff, it is just not interesting or appealing to me. Now, I don't really think that it necessarily shouldn't exist or that the gaming industry shouldn't try to offer some services that do this, because I know that there are people out there who like it, who want it, and who are excited for it. And so far be it from me to deny anyone out there from something that they would enjoy. That really wouldn't be right. Just like I don't want people denying me the way I enjoy games, which is physically. I don't want to necessarily deny anyone else of that. But it's not something that I'm interested in, that I want, that I will ever experience for myself until I absolutely have to. And I also don't like where I think it could be taking gaming in the future, which is kind of a huge focus of the Google Stadia and Project xCloud, and kind of what also made me want to have this conversation with you guys today. I think it's not so much that the idea of Project xCloud or Google Stadia is inherently bad or wrong in a world where the other options of buying and owning your games still exists. There's really nothing wrong with options to appeal to a variety of gamers. I think that that's completely fine. As I've discussed before when breaking down Google Stadia, my, quote-unquote issues with it isn't so much the service itself. It's where it could be taking gaming in the future, especially if it's really successful. If Stadia and xCloud really take off and are really good at what they're doing, I mean, initially that's great because it's just another service that's doing well. It's making money for its respective company. It's hopefully making gamers and consumers happy. So off the bat, it's great. But then you realize, oh man, is this going to speed us up towards this inevitable all-digital future where everything that is physical is going to go away? That's the fear. And that is something I will fight tooth and nail against. And to say I don't want to happen, I want to always have my option of physical games, real CDs, real movies and Blu-ray discs. All of that stuff matters to me. I don't care if I seem like an old fuddy-duddy for it. I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, and that's just what I was raised on, and that's what I will believe until my dying breath. I don't care how cool technology gets when it comes to digital stuff. It's not interesting to me. I like to actually own the stuff that I put my money into. It's important to me. And so that's what kind of helps segues me into the idea of physical games media, and just the very idea that I really wanted to discuss on this video. As a lot of people and a lot of the industry starts to look forward and look ahead to this future of streaming gameplay and all digital games libraries and all digital game purchasing, I still want to look backwards and consider how long we could keep physical media around. And in this world where everything seems to be slowly shifting, and once Stadia and Project xCloud actually launch and are available to people, we're going to see potentially a pretty big shift into this all digital, all streaming kind of future. I mean, it's going to be a very different world a year or two down the road if these things really take off. And so we'll see the industry and potentially some of the console manufacturers start to push even more and more into this future. We've already seen Sony, Microsoft, and to be fair, Nintendo start to do that. I mean, PSN, Xbox Live, and the eShop, they exist for these very reasons, to just buy games digitally. Of course, we're not talking about streaming games at that point. We are still, at the very least, talking about buying a fake digital file that's just stuck to the device you have, or in the cloud, I guess. But it's still digital. It's still in the same kind of world as the streaming game stuff. But how do we keep physical games alive? I mean, how do we fight and combat against this? It's a really tough question to answer. But in my perspective, I feel like Nintendo specifically could be one of the companies that can really keep the idea of physical games alive. I know it may sound crazy, and I know I may sound like a Nintendo fanboy that just wants to give them all of the credit for everything in the world. If you know me, you hopefully know that that's not entirely true, but in a sense, I guess there is some truth to it, because I do truly and honestly, fanboy bias aside, I do see Nintendo as one of those companies that can really fight to keep physical games media alive and well and healthy in the games industry. And there are two main reasons why I see Nintendo as one of the main bastions for physical gaming in the years and decades to come. First and foremost is the fact that, honestly, I just think it's Nintendo's style, right? I mean, those of us who are lifelong Nintendo fans and who follow the company, we know how Nintendo operates, we know how they think of themselves, and we know how they think of their business models. And I think that one of the things that they pride themselves in is how they present themselves to the gamer and to the consumer and to the rest of the industry. There's definitely a level of honor and dignity that they believe that they possess, and they want to make sure that that is apparent. And they definitely have a value of themselves, right? Like, they value themselves in a different way than the industry values them or us as fans value them. And in doing so, I think that they see that having physical machines that play video games and physical games that release, you know, discs and cartridges and whatnot and little cards for like DSs and stuff, I think that they realize that that is part of what makes them special. And that is that it's basically their legacy that they are putting out physically all over the world. And I think that they know that people collect their stuff and they understand the value of that. And I just truly think that they're a company that, you know, yes, they'll probably continue to move more and more into digital future, and they may even eventually offer a streaming option on their devices. But I think that because of how they value themselves and because of the way they look at their business models, they will, for as long as humanly possible, want to have physical hardware and physical software out on the market. And the other reason I think Nintendo could be one of those companies that really fights to keep physical gaming alive is because their games hold their value for almost forever. I mean, it's crazy, honestly, how long their games remain full price. And on top of that, also how long those games will still continue to sell at full price, even if they've been out for like 4 or 5 years. It's crazy. You can still look at first-party Wii U games, and they're still $59.99. It's insane. And I think that that's something that really can't be understated as we start to look ahead and see this streaming game service future and this all-digital games future kind of coming at us in the next couple of years or maybe even couple of decades. When you have a company like Nintendo that makes the games they do, that has the fan base that they do, and whose games and products hold the value that they do, that absolutely directly combats the idea of streaming gameplay and digital gameplay. Because you have to have a physical thing out in the world for it to have any value, right? I mean, what's the value of a live streamed file of Super Mario Odyssey 2? You know, let's say in 5 years we get Super Mario Odyssey 2 and it's an all digital streaming thing. You're playing it on the Google Stadia app for your Nintendo Switch 2. And it's like, if all you can do is stream that thing, that has no value. It is a nothing thing. It is not a product. This is, you know, kind of getting into the weeds of why I don't like the idea of digital gaming and the streaming gaming future, is because digital files, cloud files, and streaming data coming into your home is not a thing. It's not a physical, tangible thing. And so for me, the idea of paying money that I work every day for something that's not a thing like that just is ridiculous. At least in terms of gaming, where we've gone the whole, you know, length of the industry without doing this. Obviously, I'm paying for like internet service, which is the same concept I'm kind of, you know, arguing against here. But that's how internet has always been. Gaming hasn't always been this way. Gaming has always existed in the realm of you buy a box, you plug it into your TV, you buy the games for it, you put it into that box, and then you're playing it. And so that legacy has defined how I think gaming should work and why I want to keep it that way. It's different if I'm paying for, like, you know, Netflix and my internet service. So I had to make that kind of distinction. Anyway, that was a weird kind of tangent. The point is, if we're looking at a Mario Odyssey 2 in a couple of years that's streaming only, there's no value to that. It's never going to become rare. It's never going to become hard to find. It's never going to mean anything to anyone because no one's ever going to truly own it. Even if you pay for the version of Google Stadia that allows you to actually buy the license for the game, so you're not actually buying the game because you're not downloading it to anything, but you can own the ability to stream it without paying a service or something. I think it's still confusing and no one really knows the answers to this, but the point is, you're just not going to own Mario Odyssey 2 no matter what Google tells you. Whether you're paying $10 a month or you pay $60 off the bat to always have access to stream it, you don't own it. Google can turn that off anytime. Google Stadia can fail and go away, and your $60 or your $10 a month, whatever, has made it so that Mario Odyssey 2 is just no longer there. Poof, it'll just disappear in front of your eyes. It's not yours. However, those of us who right now own the original Mario Odyssey, well, that's there. It doesn't matter what Nintendo does tomorrow. They could close shop tomorrow, but we still have our Switch that works when we use it, and we still have our Mario Odyssey cartridge that we can put into that Switch to play it for the end of time. And so that's why Mario Odyssey 1 holds value, and it means something. And in a world where Nintendo only made, 500,000 copies of that game, well, that means it's going to continue to have value, it's going to continue to be rare, to be sought after, and for people to be willing to pay a lot of money for it, whether it's, to buy it from a collector or to buy it from a store shelf. Obviously, we know Odyssey isn't rare and way more than 500,000 copies are made. I'm just kind of drawing random parallels here. And so that's something about Nintendo that I think means they can help keep the physical idea of games alive. And it's because they're a company whose games hold a specific value. Plenty of other companies make amazing games. I love Sony's first-party games. I love Halo and Gears of War. I love FromSoft's games like Bloodborne and Dark Souls. Those are all amazing. But they don't hold value. I mean, how many times have we seen a really hot, great game like an Assassin's Creed or a Resident Evil or a whatever, a Spider-Man or something comes out, and within 4 or 5 months, it's dropped to half price. And then it's suddenly being given away free as the free game for PSN Plus that month or whatever the case. And so there's no value being held. But Nintendo, they do keep their value, and that really means something when we look at all digital future gaming coming at us. I mean, if you think about it, the idea of collectability is part of the reason people don't like the idea of streaming games and digital game purchasing, because they can say, I have this collection of games. For me, when I look at my huge movie collection and my huge game collection, I feel proud. I get to say, hey, look, this is what I own. It's not the same as opening up a file collection on my computer or on my PlayStation 4 and saying, hey, look at all these game files I have. My game collection is impressive, right? Here's a game file, here's a game file, here's a game file with a thumbnail. It's like, that's not a game collection to me, okay? Having access to streaming games and looking at it on your browser, on your internet, isn't a game collection to me. But my stacks and collections and cases full of game cases and movie cases, that's a collection. It's real. It means something. And a lot of people share the sentiment. For me, it's like, I work really hard for my money, and when I spend my money on stuff like games and movies, that means I want to be able to almost show it off in a way. It's like I can look at my huge collection of video games and say, yeah, man, that's where my money went. I can see it. It actually means something. It didn't just disappear into the ethosphere like all the stupid bills we pay every month. It actually went into something that you still own and have, and you can look at it and see it and admire it and appreciate it and interact with it by putting that movie into the Blu-ray player or putting that game into the console that it belongs to. And there you go. All of that money you put into these things is being utilized and appreciated in real time in physical, tangible fashion. And maybe that's the older person in me. I have a career, so I'm working 40 to 50 hours a week, and so I look at my money and how I work for it in a different way than maybe some younger people. But I don't care. That's just how I look at it. My money means something, and when I buy things like this, I want it to mean something and stand for something. And my physical collections of these things stands for what I put my money into. And that, for me, will always have value. So I kind of feel like this video was a little bit all over the place. Part of it was me talking about why I think Nintendo's great and why they will work so hard, I'm assuming, to fight against an all-digital future. The other part of it was sort of me ripping into services like Stadia and xCloud and the idea of digital gaming and stuff, which wasn't really my intent, but I mean, that's kind of why I like doing this on YouTube here, is I really just have organic conversations. I mean, I get a topic in my head, I have some ideas of where I want the conversation to go, but once I turn my microphone on, I really just talk to you about how I feel in the moment as ideas come to me. So I did get a little bit all over the place in this video, but I still think it's an interesting conversation regardless, and you know, talking about Nintendo keeping physical gaming alive works hand in hand with the idea of Google Stadia and digital game streaming. I mean, it's really, they are the opposites that need to be part of the same conversation. So I did have a lot of fun talking about this. I'm very passionate about this. I really care about the idea of physical games. And I appreciate the fact that when I look at Nintendo as a business, I see them keeping physical gaming alive longer than most other companies. I mean, I really think that they may be one of these last few game companies pushing forward physical boxes and hardware and physical games, you know, maybe even a few years after the rest of the industry kind of gives up on it. Nintendo may keep it alive for much longer, maybe even forever. Maybe they have their own personal mantra where they will never stop. And honestly, they will always have consumers. I mean, people who like Nintendo will continue to buy their stuff physically long after the rest of the industry has killed off physical gaming. I firmly believe that. I think they could probably keep it going forever. So anyway, this is long in the tooth at this point. You've heard my thoughts and theories about game streaming and Google Stadia stuff and how Nintendo will keep physical gaming alive. I think, just a theory of mine. What do you guys think about this? How do you perceive Project xCloud and Google Stadia? And how do you perceive Nintendo as a company to keep physical games media alive? Whatever you think, talk about it below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.